The 1934 wheat penny with the small but highly significant D mint mark is one of those treasures that have fascinated collectors for decades, not only because of its historical connection to the Great Depression era, but also due to the surprising market value it has achieved in the world of numismatics, where rarity, preservation, and demand combine to turn an ordinary-looking cent into a financial asset worth several $1,000s. And when we focus on this specific coin, the Denver Mint production of 1934, we uncover a story that is as much about the resilience of the American economy as it is about the small details that separate a common copper piece from one that collectors are willing to pay up to $8,700 to own. And the first part of understanding the significance of this coin is remembering the atmosphere of the early 1930s. A period when Franklin D. Roosevelt was leading the country out of economic despair. When banks were failing, unemployment was rampant, and the idea of saving even a single cent carried symbolic weight. So the 1-cent coin of that period was more than just change for chewing gum or a loaf of bread. It was part of a nation's daily survival. And into this climate, the Denver Mint struck pennies bearing the classic Lincoln portrait on the obverse and the wheat stalk reverse that gave this series its nickname. And although tens of millions were struck overall, the Denver output that year produced a smaller run compared to Philadelphia, making the D variety less common in surviving examples. But scarcity alone does not explain why a single piece can command close to $9,000. The real explanation lies in condition, eye appeal, strike sharpness, and historical relevance combined, which are the qualities professional graders and seasoned collectors look for when evaluating whether a coin falls into the ordinary or the extraordinary category. And when you look closely at the obverse of a well-preserved 1934 D, the portrait of Abraham Lincoln stands out with crisp detail. You can see the beard lines clearly. The lettering, "In God We Trust," arches strongly above the head without weak spots. The date, 1934, is bold and distinct, and just below it, slightly to the right, the letter D confirms the Denver origin, while on the reverse side, the iconic wheat ears curve gracefully, framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, and above those, the motto E pluribus unum remains readable. And the difference between a coin worth face value and one worth thousands lies in how clean those details remain after nearly 90 years. Because circulation wears down rims, flattens reliefs, and leaves scratches that reduce collector interest. So identifying whether you have the valuable version requires careful examination under good lighting, and sometimes even magnification. And for many enthusiasts, the first step is to check if the mint mark is intact and genuine. Since alterations have been known in numismatics where unscrupulous individuals try to add a fake D to increase value, so verifying authenticity by studying the shape and placement of the mint mark is critical. And once authenticity is clear, the next step is grading, which in professional terms ranges from good at the bottom, meaning heavily worn, all the way to mint state at the top, meaning no circulation wear, only minor bag marks from the minting process. And it is those mint state survivors of the 1934 D wheat penny that command the highest premiums, sometimes auctioning for around $8,700 or even higher depending on bidding wars. And for someone new to coin collecting who discovers such a piece in an old family jar or inherited album, the question becomes how to confirm value without damaging the coin. And the answer is patience and careful handling. Never rubbing it with cloth or cleaning chemicals because that can permanently reduce its grade. Instead, holding it by the edges only, ideally wearing cotton gloves. Then placing it in a protective holder like a 2x2 cardboard flip or an airtight capsule. And for long-term preservation, many collectors recommend storing coins in a climate-controlled environment, away from humidity and temperature fluctuations. Since copper is particularly prone to developing spots and oxidation, and specialized archival quality containers prevent exposure to air and harmful PVC plastics, which can cause green residue, often called PVC damage, that ruins surfaces and beyond physical preservation. Recording provenance also adds to collector appeal, meaning if you can document where the coin was found or who originally owned it, that narrative enhances its desirability, especially for a coin tied to a dramatic period of American history. Because the Great Depression backdrop gives every 1934 cent a story beyond its metallic composition, it becomes a relic of endurance, circulated by citizens stretching every penny. And for the Denver Mint variety, with lower survival numbers in high grade, each pristine example feels like a time capsule, a window into pockets and purses of Colorado and the surrounding states where these cents first circulated. And when enthusiasts gather at coin shows or auctions, conversations around the 1934D often highlight how overlooked mid-1930s issues were until modern grading services began slabbing them, meaning encapsulating them in tamper-proof holders with an official grade, which gave collectors confidence to pay premium prices. And this shift in the numismatic market over the last 4 decades elevated coins like the 1934D Wheat Penny from modest collectibles into investment-level assets. And while many focus on the financial aspect, the real joy of discovering such a coin lies in the thrill of the hunt. Whether searching through rolls of cents from the bank, browsing estate sales, or sorting through an inherited collection, the possibility that a seemingly common copper cent could turn out to be a 4-figure treasure excites the imagination. And for those serious about the hobby, developing the skill to spot strong strikes, minimal wear, and authentic mint marks is what separates casual hobbyists from knowledgeable numismatists. So if you want to check whether your coin might be one of the valuable ones, start with a magnifying glass of at least 10x power. Tilt the coin under a bright but indirect light source. Examine the rims to ensure they are sharp and not flattened. Look for full separation of Lincoln's hair and beard details. Make sure the wheat stalk lines on the reverse are visible from top to bottom. And then verify the mint mark has not been tampered with. Sometimes under magnification you can see tool marks if someone has added a false letter. And if all looks promising, the next step is consulting a reputable third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC, both of which not only confirm authenticity but also assign a numerical grade. And that grade determines where in the market range your piece falls. For instance, an MS-64 red example might bring several thousand, while an MS-67 red could push near or above the $8,700 mark. And in today's market, where collectors are increasingly viewing coins as tangible assets in addition to historical artifacts, the appeal of the 1934D has grown, because it represents a balance of relative availability in circulated condition with extreme scarcity in high grade, making it both accessible and aspirational so newcomers can own a piece of history for a modest sum while experts chase the finest known specimens. And that dual role keeps the coin relevant across generations, and when discussing preservation further, it is worth noting that copper coins react to their environment more than silver or nickel pieces. So using silica gel packs in storage boxes helps absorb moisture, while keeping coins out of direct sunlight prevents uneven toning. And collectors who want to display their coins often use albums with inert plastic slides that allow viewing without direct contact, ensuring the coin's surfaces remain untouched for decades. And another crucial storage tip is to avoid fluctuating conditions, such as attics or basements where temperature swings and dampness accelerate corrosion, instead keeping them in a stable indoor environment, ideally around room temperature. And if you ever need to transport the coin, using bubble-lined envelopes or padded cases ensures no accidental scratches occur, because even the smallest mark can drop a coin's grade and shave hundreds or thousands off its market value. And that fact highlights why knowledgeable collectors always emphasize do nothing when unsure, meaning resist the temptation to clean, polish, or experiment with storage methods until you've researched proper numismatic practices. And in conclusion, the 1934D Wheat Penny is far more than just a 1-cent coin. It is a testament to American history, a reminder of resilience in hard times, and a tangible piece of artistry from the Denver Mint. And for those lucky enough to find one in high grade, it is also a financial windfall, capable of turning a humble copper cent into a treasure valued around $8,700. And whether you are a seasoned collector or a beginner just starting your journey, learning to identify, appreciate, and properly preserve coins like this enriches both your knowledge and your wallet, ensuring that the legacy of these small but powerful artifacts continues into the future, inspiring new generations to cherish the stories hidden within pocket change. Next up, The 1939 Lincoln Wheat Penny struck without a mint mark from the Philadelphia facility is a numismatic artifact that has achieved extraordinary significance because of its scarcity in pristine form, the era it represents, and the enduring passion collectors hold for copper cents carrying the simple yet timeless design of Abraham Lincoln's portrait and the wheat stalks reverse. And while at first glance it may appear indistinguishable from billions of other small brown coins that circulated through American commerce during the late 1930s, deeper study reveals why a single example can now be valued around $8,300, transforming an everyday object into a coveted prize. And to appreciate its importance, we need to step back into the environment of 1939, when the United States was cautiously recovering from years of economic uncertainty brought by the Depression while simultaneously observing the gathering storm clouds of conflict overseas. And in that climate, a 1-cent coin was not just pocket change, but a daily necessity, used for everything from purchasing stamps to paying for groceries, and in Philadelphia, where the largest federal mint produced the majority of circulating coinage, vast numbers of Lincoln cents were struck. Yet, as is often the case in numismatics, sheer mintage figures tell only part of the story, because the true determinant of rarity lies in survival rates at the highest levels of preservation. And here the 1939 Philadelphia issue reveals its hidden power. For although many millions were struck, virtually all entered circulation where they experienced years of wear, and only a tiny fraction were set aside immediately after striking, retaining their bright original red luster and sharp detail. And it is precisely those pieces, untouched by commerce and carefully preserved, that command astonishing premiums today, sometimes exceeding $8,300 in auction when graded at the uppermost levels by professional services. And examining the coin itself reveals subtle beauty often overlooked. On the obverse, Lincoln's head displays bold sculpting with well-defined hair above the forehead and distinct separation in the beard, while the motto, "In God We Trust," arches prominently across the top, with liberty clearly placed to the left and the date 1939 sitting to the right, unaccompanied by any mint mark confirming the Philadelphia origin, while the reverse continues with the classic Brenner design of 2 wheat stalks curving around the central inscription's 1 cent, and United States of America, and the upper edge holds the Latin phrase "E pluribus unum," and the artistry of this design, though familiar, takes on a different quality when seen on a fresh, well-struck coin with blazing copper tones that shimmer between red and gold, making such examples not merely money but miniature works of art. And for someone hoping to determine whether their 1939 cent is among the valuable survivors, the process begins with close observation, ideally under magnification of at least 10 power, where the eye should search for sharp rims free of flattening, clean fields with minimal contact marks, strong detail in Lincoln's facial features and hair, and crisp definition in the lines of the wheat stalks, because these are the markers of coins that avoided circulation and thus retained their original condition. And unlike the Denver or San Francisco issues, the Philadelphia pieces bear no mint mark at all, so authenticity is confirmed simply by the absence of any letter beneath the date. But condition remains the ultimate arbiter of value, and grading standards place circulated pieces into categories like fine or very fine, which, though collectible, are relatively inexpensive, while mint state coins, especially those with a designation of red indicating full original coloration, climb dramatically in value, sometimes reaching that $8,300 figure. And for someone who discovers such a coin unexpectedly, perhaps in an inherited collection or an old family jar, the temptation to polish it for appearance must be resisted, because cleaning strips away the delicate natural surface that graders value, instantly lowering worth. So the safest approach is minimal handling, always gripping only by the edges, preferably with cotton gloves, and then storing the piece in an inert holder such as an archival quality flip or an airtight capsule, which shields it from air, moisture, and human oils. And since copper is particularly reactive, creating spots and discoloration when exposed to humidity, advanced collectors often add silica packs to their storage boxes to absorb excess moisture, maintaining stability and for longer-term protection. Coins should be kept in a controlled environment away from direct light and temperature swings, since basements and attics often accelerate corrosion, and instead a stable indoor room ensures decades of preservation. And another method practiced by professionals is encapsulation through grading companies like PCGS or NGC, which not only protects the coin in a sonically sealed slab, but also provides an official grade, giving confidence to buyers and enhancing liquidity in the market. Because collectors are more willing to pay thousands when the condition has been certified by experts. And beyond the physical attributes, the 1939 Philadelphia Wheat Penny also carries emotional resonance, representing a time when Americans were regaining optimism after a decade of hardship, yet still saving every cent carefully, and this historical aura adds intangible value, as owning such a coin connects the collector with ancestors who handled similar cents while navigating daily challenges of that transformative year. And at major auctions, when a high-grade 1939 no-mint mark cent appears, bidding often escalates quickly, not only because of the objective rarity, but also because of the symbolic weight tied to the year before America entered the Second World War, making it a reminder of the calm before the storm. And many serious numismatists consider it a cornerstone of any complete wheat penny collection, because while later issues like the steel cents of 1943 receive more popular attention, the subtle beauty and challenge of acquiring a superb 1939 Philadelphia coin appeals to connoisseurs, and the process of evaluating one requires patience, knowledge, and attention to detail. For example, under magnification, a valuable piece will show sharp square rims, full separation of the lines in the wheat kernels, no evidence of rub on Lincoln's cheekbone or jaw, and uniform color across the surface, while problematic coins may reveal spots, scratches, or dull brown toning that reduce eye appeal. And to avoid mistakes, newcomers are advised to compare potential finds against online image archives of graded examples, training their eyes to spot nuances, because the difference between an $8 coin and an $300 coin often lies in tiny subtleties, visible only to practiced observers. And for storage beyond individual holders, albums with sliding plastic covers can allow viewing without direct touching. But it is essential those albums be made of archival materials free from PVC, since cheap plastics release chemicals that damage copper surfaces. And collectors who invest in high-value coins like this often use specialized boxes designed for slabs with foam padding and locking lids to keep their treasures secure. And when transporting coins, padded cases or bubble-lined envelopes prevent accidental friction that could mar surfaces. Because even a single scratch can mean the difference between a top population coin and an average example. And the discipline of preserving coins properly reflects the respect collectors hold for history, knowing that they are guardians of artifacts that will outlast them, carrying stories to future generations. And indeed, the 1939 no-mint mark wheat penny stands as one of those artifacts, embodying not only copper and design but the resilience of a nation, the artistry of its mint engravers, and the enduring human fascination with objects of small size but immense meaning. And that is why, when spoken of in numismatic circles, the mention of a superb 1939 Philadelphia cent often brings admiration, recognition, and a bit of envy, for such a coin is both a financial prize and a time machine in metal, linking today's world with an era nearly a century past. And for anyone lucky enough to discover one in extraordinary condition, the reward is not only the possibility of selling it for over $8,300, but also the deeper satisfaction of having uncovered a piece of living history that speaks quietly yet powerfully from the palm of the hand. Next up, the 1942 wheat penny produced at the Philadelphia Mint without any identifying letter beneath the date has grown into one of the more fascinating discoveries for collectors. Not because of an extremely low mintage, but because of the combination of historical backdrop, condition rarity, and the tremendous allure copper coins hold when they survive nearly flawless. And although the majority of these cents circulated heavily during the early years of World War II, a handful preserved in pristine state now command prices as high as $7,000, elevating what once bought a stick of gum into a treasure worth more than many modern paychecks. And to understand why this particular year resonates so strongly, we must recall the United States in 1942, when the nation was fully mobilizing after the attack on Pearl Harbor, factories shifting to military production, Citizens buying war bonds, families sacrificing luxuries. And in that atmosphere, every cent carried meaning. Whether dropped into a payphone, placed into a vending machine, or saved in small quantities to buy essentials. So the Lincoln Wheat Penny of that year became part of a broader story of sacrifice and determination, its familiar portrait of the 16th president symbolizing unity and endurance. And although Philadelphia struck tens of millions of examples, the ravages of circulation, the redirection of metals, and the fact that few people considered hoarding cents at the time means that mint state survivors are far less common than the mintage suggests. And it is these bright red, uncirculated pieces that hold extraordinary value, often verified by grading companies and sought after at auction by specialists willing to push bids well above $7,000. And when examining such a coin, one quickly sees why condition plays such a dominant role. For the obverse should display full sharpness in Lincoln's hair and cheek, no flatness on the jawline, and crisp edges around each letter of "In God We Trust," Liberty, and the 4 numerals of 1942, and crucially, no mint mark appears under the date, which is the defining trait of the Philadelphia strike, while the reverse should exhibit strong stalks of wheat with lines running cleanly from top to bottom, bold lettering in 1 cent and United States of America, and a distinct a pluribus unum arching above, all without distracting marks, spots, or dullness. And because copper reacts readily to its environment, coins stored in less than ideal conditions developed dark brown or blotchy surfaces, which reduce appeal, so the few examples carefully saved in envelopes, albums, or bank vaults stand out dramatically today. And for those who suspect they may have a valuable 1942 no mint mark cent, the first step is always observation under bright, indirect light, tilting the coin to see luster flow across the fields, because genuine uncirculated pieces show cartwheel-like reflections that dull or worn coins lack. Then using a magnifier of 10 power to check for wear on the high points, since even the faintest rub on Lincoln's cheekbone or the wheat tip signals circulation and thus lowers value, and because counterfeits and altered dates exist in the hobby, it is important to ensure the numerals are original, showing proper shape and spacing consistent with the dies of the era, and once authenticity is confirmed, grading becomes the decisive factor. Where professional services assign numerical designations on the Sheldon scale, with the most valuable being coins in mint state 65 and above, often accompanied by the color classification red, indicating near full original fiery copper coloration, and such designations catapult market value into the multi-thousand-dollar range. So while an average worn example may fetch only a small premium, the top-tier survivors make headlines when they appear at major auctions. Because demand from advanced wheat penny collectors remains unshakably strong, and for those fortunate enough to acquire or discover such a specimen, proper preservation is the key to protecting and potentially increasing value, which means avoiding all cleaning, rubbing, or polishing, since even gentle attempts at brightening surfaces leave hairlines visible under magnification, which grading companies penalize harshly, often branding the coin as cleaned and lowering its financial potential drastically. So the correct handling method is to hold the coin only by the edges, ideally while wearing cotton gloves, and to immediately place it in a secure holder made of inert materials, whether a 2x2 cardboard flip lined with mylar or a modern airtight capsule, which seals the coin away from air and human oils. And because copper is so sensitive to humidity, many collectors store their wheat pennies alongside silica gel packs in boxes to absorb moisture, while avoiding plastic materials containing PVC that release chemicals over time and leave sticky green residue known as PVC damage, which is nearly impossible to remove without ruining surfaces. And further best practice is to keep coins in a stable environment with minimal temperature fluctuations, avoiding attics, garages, or basements. Instead, using an interior room with consistent climate and for display, albums produced by trusted brands using archival components allow viewing without touching, sliding protective layers over coins to reduce exposure. But for especially valuable examples like a 1942 Philadelphia cent in high grade, encapsulation through PCGS or NGC is highly recommended, as this both locks the coin into a tamper-proof holder and provides a grade recognized worldwide, making resale far easier and ensuring the coin remains protected against mishandling. And beyond the physical characteristics and storage strategies, the emotional and historical dimension of owning such a coin cannot be understated, for this was a penny that circulated during the earliest months of American participation in World War II, passing through the hands of soldiers, factory workers, and children buying rationed goods, carrying within its copper a silent record of those times. And each survivor, in pristine condition, is a reminder of resilience, a tangible bridge to a moment when the nation was transforming rapidly. So collectors prize it not just as metal but as a story preserved. And the market reflects that narrative power, with prices consistently strong. Because serious numismatists know that demand will not vanish as long as history captivates people. And when these coins appear at shows or auctions, conversation often centers on how deceptively ordinary they look until seen under the right conditions. When their luster and perfection reveal why they are worth thousands, and for newcomers, discovering one in a family accumulation or inherited estate can feel like a miracle. Because the difference between a common cent and a treasure rests in subtle details only trained eyes detect. But with patience anyone can learn, comparing raw coins to certified examples, studying reference photographs, and practicing under magnification, eventually building the confidence to recognize what others may overlook. And as more collectors turn toward tangible assets in uncertain financial times, coins like the 1942 Philadelphia Wheat Penny in superior preservation continue to be viewed as both historical artifacts and safe investments, combining beauty, rarity, and liquidity, which is why the market has rewarded them with values around $7,000 for the finest examples. And ultimately, the lesson this coin teaches is that value does not come only from precious metals like gold or silver, but from history, context, condition, and the collective passion of people who see more than copper. They see a story, a symbol, and a link across generations. So whether one is holding it for financial gain or historical appreciation, the 1942 no-mint mark Wheat Penny stands as a remarkable reminder that even the smallest object can carry the greatest significance. Next up, the 1944 Wheat Penny without a mint mark. Struck in massive quantities at the Philadelphia Mint during the height of the Second World War, may appear to be one of the most ordinary coins in circulation history. Yet within this vast sea of production hides a small population of extraordinary survivors that have transformed an everyday copper cent into a highly desirable, collectible worth up to $5,000 when preserved in flawless state. And what makes this coin story remarkable is not just its financial premium, but its deep connection to the wartime era, when the nation was fully mobilized for conflict overseas. Industries producing weapons, households rationing goods, and citizens encouraged to save metals for the war effort. So the Lincoln cent of that year carried with it the symbolism of unity and endurance. And unlike the steel cents of 1943, which stand out as a one-year emergency issue, the 1944 pennies marked a return to traditional bronze alloy, created largely from recycled ammunition shell casings, an irony that coins made from remnants of warfare became symbols of everyday commerce and survival. And while the Philadelphia Mint produced more than 1 billion pieces, making this one of the most common dates of the entire series, the crucial factor lies not in quantity but in quality, because the overwhelming majority entered circulation immediately, endured decades of wear, and eventually lost their original luster. So only a tiny fraction stored carefully at the time remain in dazzling condition. And those are the pieces collectors now chase, bidding thousands of dollars for an example certified in the top mint state grades with full original red coloration. And to appreciate why condition matters so much, one must examine the features of the design itself. The obverse dominated by Abraham Lincoln's dignified bust, his hair and beard lines requiring precise, striking pressure to appear fully. The motto, "In God We Trust," stretching across the top rim, the word "Liberty" to the left, and the date, 1944, positioned to the right without any mint mark below, confirming Philadelphia origin, while the reverse carries the two stylized wheat stalks framing 1 cent and United States of America with the familiar phrase, "E pluribus unum" above, and in a top-grade survivor, all of these elements remain sharp and glowing, with no flattening on Lincoln's cheek or jaw, no dullness in the hair, and complete lines visible in the wheat ears, while the fields shimmer with bright copper radiance, and these visual qualities separate a coin worth pocket change from one commanding thousands. So for anyone hoping to identify whether their 1944 cent is of such value, the first step is to study it under bright yet indirect light, tilting the coin to see if original mint luster reflects in cartwheel fashion across the surface, then using a magnifier to check for wear on the high points, because even slight friction from circulation disqualifies a coin from the top categories. And since the Philadelphia issue lacks a mint mark, there is no risk of confusion with Denver or San Francisco varieties, yet one must still be cautious of altered or counterfeit pieces, especially since some rare transitional errors, such as steel planchets mistakenly struck in 1944, command astronomical sums, leading forgeries to appear. So confirming that the coin is indeed genuine bronze and not manipulated is essential. And once authenticity is assured, the question of grade becomes central, with professional grading services like PCGS or NGC providing the final word by encapsulating the coin in a tamper-proof holder with an official designation. And it is in these holders that top examples regularly reach the $5,000 mark, a reflection of both rarity and high grade and the enduring popularity of the Wheat Penny series. And for someone fortunate enough to own such a piece, proper care is critical because copper is notoriously reactive, prone to spotting and tone shifts when exposed to moisture or environmental pollutants, so handling should always be done by the edges only, preferably while wearing gloves. And storing in archival holders made of inert plastic or mylar-lined flips ensures long-term protection, while airtight capsules provide an even greater level of security by minimizing air contact. And because storage conditions play a decisive role in the survival of red coloration, many advanced collectors go further, keeping coins in climate-controlled spaces with stable temperature and humidity, often adding silica packs to storage boxes to absorb excess moisture, and avoiding cheap plastics containing PVC, which release chemicals that eat into copper surfaces, leaving green corrosion known as PVC damage that cannot be removed without ruining the coin. And beyond these technical details, the 1944 Philadelphia cent carries a resonance that makes ownership meaningful beyond dollars. For each coin is a silent witness to a year when millions of American soldiers were overseas, when newspapers were filled with reports of battles, when families at home were stretching every resource, and when small coins like this one were circulating through hands that understood the true weight of sacrifice. So holding such a piece today is not only a matter of financial reward, but of connecting directly to a moment in history when even pennies carried a sense of purpose. And at auctions or conventions, the presence of a blazing red 1944 no mint mark cent in top condition always attracts attention, sparking conversations about how few of these were saved, about how ironic it is that one of the most common dates can also be among the most desirable in top preservation, and about how a $5,000 coin can look, at first glance, no different than any cent in a pocket of change, which is precisely what makes coin collecting so fascinating. The idea that value hides in plain sight, revealed only to those with knowledge, patience, and careful eyes, and for newcomers to the hobby. The 1944 cent provides an excellent lesson in the relationship between mintage and value, showing that rarity at the high end of preservation is what truly drives prices, not raw numbers struck, because billions may exist in worn condition, but only a sliver remain as pristine gems. And for those interested in protecting such a treasure once found, additional strategies include avoiding exposure to direct sunlight, which can cause uneven toning, using boxes with foam or velvet interiors to reduce vibration damage when moving coins, and maintaining detailed records of provenance, since documentation of discovery or ownership history can increase interest among buyers, and in some cases, collectors choose to ensure high-value examples as part of their assets, recognizing that these small objects carry both sentimental and monetary worth. And ultimately, the story of the 1944 Philadelphia Wheat Penny reminds us that the smallest artifacts can hold the greatest meaning, not only in financial terms but in historical weight, and that by studying, identifying, and preserving them, we not only protect their market value but also honor the generations that carried them, the sacrifices they made, and the history they represent. So the next time someone glances at a plain old copper cent from the mid-1940s, They may realize that hidden in that coin could be a $5,000 gem, a reminder that in numismatics, knowledge transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. Next up, the 1947 wheat penny carrying the small D mark beneath the date, signifying production at the Denver Mint, closes out a fascinating chapter of mid-20th century American coinage, a chapter in which copper cents remained both workhorses of everyday commerce and, in rare surviving conditions, treasures now capable of reaching values of around $3,500. And the story of this particular issue reflects not only the economic realities of the post-war era, but also the way numismatics transforms seemingly ordinary objects into cultural artifacts of immense interest. For by 1947, the United States had emerged from the hardships of global conflict. Veterans were returning home. Industries were transitioning from wartime production to consumer goods. And optimism defined the national mood, and in pockets across the country, Lincoln wheat pennies circulated endlessly, funding small purchases, being dropped into candy machines, payphones, parking meters, and children's piggy banks. Yet within this constant usage, the Denver Mint's cents of that year carried subtle details that, when preserved, became numismatic gems, and while tens of millions were struck, ensuring that circulated examples remain common even today. The real rarity lies in those few coins struck with precision, saved before they could endure wear, and stored in such a way that their fiery copper brilliance, known as red in the grading vocabulary, has survived untouched. And it is precisely these coins that auction bidders compete fiercely for, propelling their market worth up to that $3,500 figure. And to understand what distinguishes such a piece, one must begin with the design itself. Victor David Brenner's classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln dominating the obverse, his features crisp and solemn, the words, "In God we trust," arching boldly overhead, Liberty tucked neatly to the left, the four numerals of 1947 clearly defined to the right, and directly beneath them the small D confirming Denver origin, while the reverse reveals the iconic wheat stalks bending inward, framing 1 cent and United States of America in the center, topped by the timeless motto, E pluribus unum, and when encountered in mint state, the sharpness of these devices is immediately apparent. The lines in the wheat stalks distinct from base to tip, the lettering clean and squared, the portrait displaying full hair detail without flatness on the cheekbone, and the fields glowing with satiny copper luster that rolls like waves under shifting light. And these visual qualities separate a coin worth pennies from one worth thousands. So for anyone hoping to evaluate a 1947 D-cent, the process begins with careful inspection under bright, non-direct light, tilting the coin gently to observe whether luster flows uninterrupted across the surface, then magnifying the high points to check for friction, since even the lightest rub marks transform an uncirculated piece into an average circulated one. And the mint mark itself must be studied as well, because fraudulent alterations exist, where unscrupulous individuals add or modify a letter to simulate rarity. Yet genuine Denver mint marks of 1947 have a distinctive shape and placement, slightly to the right and beneath the final numeral, pressed firmly into the die rather than appearing raised unnaturally. And once authenticity and condition appear favorable, the next step for serious collectors is professional certification through grading services such as PCGS or NGC, who encapsulate the coin in a secure holder and assign both a numerical grade and a color designation of brown, red-brown, or red with the last commanding the highest premiums, because original fiery copper is far scarcer than toned surfaces, and examples graded mint state 65 red or higher are the ones capable of achieving that $3,500 valuation. And for anyone lucky enough to own such a treasure, the importance of preservation cannot be overstated, since copper reacts aggressively to its environment, developing spots, streaks, or discoloration when exposed to humidity, oils, or temperature swings. So proper handling requires holding the coin only by its edges, ideally while wearing clean cotton or nitrile gloves, and immediately placing it into protective storage, with archival safe flips, inert capsules, or third-party graded holders being the safest options. And long-term safety further depends on climate control. avoiding attics or basements where dampness or heat accelerates deterioration, instead choosing stable indoor environments, often with silica gel packs or dehumidifiers to regulate moisture, and never using PVC plastics, which exude harmful chemicals that leave green residue on copper, permanently damaging surfaces and beyond technical care. Owners of valuable 1947 cents often document provenance, recording when and how the coin was acquired, because history of ownership adds narrative weight in addition to financial worth, enhancing desirability among advanced collectors. And while the value today may stand around $3,500 for top specimens, the true fascination of the 1947 Denver cent lies in its dual identity. At once one of the most common coins of its era, and yet, in select examples, one of the most desirable, illustrating the paradox at the heart of numismatics, where condition creates rarity even amid abundance. And this paradox fuels the thrill of the hunt, inspiring collectors to sort through rolls of cents from banks, coin shows, or inherited accumulations, each time hoping to glimpse that brilliant luster, that sharp strike, that untouched survivor that elevates a cent into a prize. And it is this chase, as much as the financial reward, that sustains passion in the hobby, connecting people across generations. Because every 1947 wheat penny is a tangible link to the optimism of post-war America, to families rebuilding lives, to children buying sweets with coins that now sit in holders, cherished not for what they bought, but for what they represent. And ultimately, the lesson of this coin is that significance often hides in the smallest things, waiting for the observant to recognize it, preserve it, and pass it on, so that in the hands of future collectors, the 1947 Denver wheat penny will continue to tell its story, both as a humble 1-cent piece and as a cherished artifact valued at thousands of dollars.